The woman in the job line. The morning sun rose slowly over the colony marketplace. Metal stalls creaked open, dust swirled in the cold air. And in the middle of a long job line, an alien woman stood with a child in her arms. Her name was Valera, a widow poor and alone. Her thin hands hugged her sleeping son closer. His small head rested on her shoulder. His breathing was soft. But Valera's eyes were wide open, full of fear and exhaustion. She had not eaten in 2 days. Her boy had eaten only half a fruit yesterday. Valera stood quietly, saying nothing. Around her, other aliens shifted, muttered, and stared at her with cold eyes. "She's still here?" Someone whispered behind her. "She's cursed," said another. "Wherever she works, bad things happen." Valera didn't respond. She heard these words every day. Some called her unlucky. Others said she was trouble. No one believed her husband was innocent. No one cared about the truth. He was executed by the Galactic Guard. Since then, no one wanted her near. Still, she stood in line because her child needed food, and she needed hope. A loud robotic voice barked, "Next!" An alien worker stepped forward and handed over his documents. Valera took a deep breath. Her turn was close. "Don't even try," muttered the alien woman in front of her. "They won't hire you." Valera didn't answer. She just waited. Finally, it was her turn. She stepped up to the metal counter. A large alien employer stared down at her. He looked at her worn dress, her tired face, and the child in her arms. "No," he said flatly. "I can clean. I can cook," she said softly. "I said no," the alien repeated, then called, "Next!" Valera stepped back, her heart sinking. One by one, she tried 4 more stalls. Each time she was rejected. No one even asked for her name. Tears built up in her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. Not here, not in front of them. She turned, away from the crowd, and walked toward the edge of the market. Her child stirred in her arms and looked up at her with sleepy, confused eyes. "Mama?" "No food?" he asked. "Not yet," she whispered, forcing a smile. Suddenly, a voice came from behind her. "Excuse me." She turned. A man stood there. Human, tall, quiet, wearing a dusty work coat. He looked like a builder or mechanic. His hands were rough, and a small toolkit hung from his belt, but his eyes were calm. "I saw you back there," he said. "You were looking for work?" Valera hesitated. Was he going to mock her too? "Yes," she said, holding her child closer. "I don't have much," the man said. "But I could use help. Cooking, cleaning, some small tasks." Valera blinked. No one had ever offered her anything without asking something dark in return. "You don't care who I am?" she asked. "I care if you work hard," the man replied. "And if you're honest?" She looked down at her boy. He looked up at the human, eyes wide. "What's your name?" she asked. "Jonas," he said simply. Valera bit her lip. She was scared, but she was also desperate. "Okay," she said. "I will work." Jonas nodded and turned around. "Follow me." She followed him through the dusty streets. Many eyes watched. Some aliens whispered. Others laughed quietly. Human took her in. He's a fool. She'll curse his whole house. But Jonas didn't stop walking, and Valera didn't look back. Soon, they reached a small metal home at the edge of the colony. It was quiet there. No neighbors nearby. A lonely wind blew across the sand. Jonas opened the door. Inside, it was simple. 1 room, a stove, a workbench, some tools, a folded bed in the corner. "You can stay here. There's an old blanket in that box," Jonas said, pointing. "Just help me keep this place running." Valera slowly stepped inside. She set her son down gently on a pile of rags. "I can start now," she said. Jonas smiled faintly. "You're the first to say that. Most people ask for credits first." Valera shook her head. "Work first, then food, that's fair." Jonas nodded. "All right, let's see what you can cook." That night, the small metal house smelled like warm food for the first time in weeks. Jonas took a bite and raised his eyebrows. "This is amazing." Valera said nothing, but her hands trembled. Her child sat on a stool, finally smiling with a full belly. As Jonas washed his plate, Valera turned away so he wouldn't see the tears falling from her eyes. For the first time in months, someone had let her work, had spoken kindly, had given her child food. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring. But tonight, she felt hope. The morning after her first meal at the human's home, Valera woke before the sun. Her child was still asleep, curled up in a corner with the old blanket Jonas had given her. She didn't have a bed. She didn't need one. Warmth was enough. Quietly, she stood and cleaned the tiny kitchen. She polished the stove. She arranged tools on the shelf. She swept the floor until the dust was gone. All before Jonas even opened his eyes. When he finally stepped out of his room, scratching his head, he stopped in the doorway and blinked. "Did you clean all this?" he asked. Valera nodded. "You didn't have to do it before I woke up." She simply replied, "The job starts with sunrise, doesn't it?" Jonas looked at her for a moment. He didn't smile, but his tone softened. "You're different." That day, he handed her a new task. The yard behind his metal shack was full of rusted scraps and half-dead machinery. "This stuff needs sorting," Jonas said. "Most of it's junk. Some pieces are worth something. You'll learn to tell." Valera nodded and walked into the sunlight. Sleeves rolled, hands ready. She worked through the heat of the day. Oil smeared her fingers. Sharp metal nicked her skin. Her back ached, but she didn't stop. Jonas checked on her hours later, expecting her to be resting. Instead, he found her with parts already sorted into piles. Her child sat nearby, watching with wide eyes as she pulled apart old circuits with surprising skill. "You've done this before?" Jonas asked. Valera hesitated. "My husband worked in engines, I helped." Jonas nodded. "You're fast." She nodded back but didn't meet his eyes. Praise felt unfamiliar. Later that evening, Jonas placed a few credits on the table beside her meal. She looked at the credits, then looked up at him. "What is this for?" she asked. "You worked hard. It's payment." She shook her head. "You gave us shelter, food. I didn't expect anything." Jonas crossed his arms. "That's not how humans do things. Work means pay." Her fingers trembled as she picked up the credits. She pressed them to her chest like something sacred. No one had ever paid her honestly since her husband died. But not everyone was happy. At the market, rumors spread fast. "Jonas? The human engineer? He gave her a job? He's crazy. She'll bring disaster. She's only pretending to be harmless." Others began to whisper louder. "She carries the death mark. She should not even be allowed in the colony." The whispers reached Jonas's ears. He ignored them. The next day, Valera walked into the market to buy a few ingredients with her earned credits. As she passed a group of merchants, one of them shoved her shoulder. "Don't bring your cursed hands near our food." The alien spat. She lowered her head. "I only want fruit for my child. You think you can buy respect with human coins?" The other vendors laughed. She turned away silently. But behind her, one of the aliens muttered, "The human will regret helping you." She walked quickly back to the shack. When Jonas returned that evening, he noticed her eyes red. "What happened?" "Nothing," she whispered. Jonas didn't ask more. He handed her a new set of tools and quietly said, "Tomorrow we fix the water tank. It's old and dangerous." Valera looked confused. "You trust me with something dangerous?" "You work carefully," he replied, "and you care." That night, as the moon rose, Valera stood outside the shack. Her child was asleep inside. She looked at the stars above the colony. She could still hear the laughter of those who hated her, the voices of those who blamed her. But beside those voices was another, a human voice. Calm, fair, honest. She had found a job nobody else wanted. But to her, it was more than a job. It was a chance. A small light in a long, dark tunnel. Far away, near the landing ports, a new ship touched down. A dark figure stepped off, pulling his coat around him. He looked at a small glowing device in his hand, a tracker. The screen blinked once. Target, alive. Location, human sector. The figure's lip curled into a cold smile. So she survived. The colony was buzzing, not with machines or markets, but with gossip. Everywhere Valera went now, eyes followed her. Mouths whispered. Heads shook. Some people stopped talking when she passed. Others didn't even hide their words. Still, working for the human? She's clever. Acting like a poor mother. She brings death, just wait. Valera kept her head down. She walked quickly, carrying a basket of tools Jonas had asked for. Her son walked beside her, holding her hand. He was used to the stares. He didn't ask questions anymore. But inside, Valera felt like breaking. She had worked so hard. She cleaned, cooked, sorted scrap, fixed parts. She even learned how to repair small engines. And Jonas? He never raised his voice, never asked for anything unfair. He treated her like a real worker, like a person. But the colony hated her even more. Now, at a food stall, a female vendor crossed her arms and glared. I don't serve her kind. Valera looked down. I have credits. I don't care. Go back to that human junk house. A younger alien man nearby leaned toward the vendor. You know what they say. Her husband wasn't just a criminal. He was part of a rebel cult. Killed a guard. The vendor nodded. She probably helped. Valera stepped back, clutching her son's hand. She had heard these lies before, but hearing them again still burned. They didn't know the truth. They didn't want to. Back at the shack, Jonas noticed her silence. You didn't eat? He asked. She shook her head. No one would sell to me. Jonas didn't say anything, at first. He turned, picked up his coat, and walked out the door. Half an hour later, he came back with 2 bags of supplies. Valera blinked in surprise. They'll talk about you, she warned. Jonas shrugged. Let them talk. But why? She asked. Why do you keep helping me? He looked at her calmly. Because you haven't stopped trying. That night, her child sat beside Jonas at the workbench. Jonas showed him how to press buttons on a small scanner. Valera watched quietly, heart full and afraid at the same time. Her son laughed. A soft, happy laugh. She hadn't heard that sound. In months, she thought, maybe we can build a life here, maybe this place can become home. But far away in the dark, the man who had arrived days ago watched her through binoculars. Commander Krez. His sharp, insect-like eyes narrowed as he followed her every move. She looks happy, he muttered. Then he tapped his communicator. Prepare. The files, I found the widow. The next morning, Valera stepped outside to hang wet clothes. Her child chased a small bug with giggles. But then she froze. A figure stood near the gate, arms behind his back, uniform dark and cold. Commander Krez. Her blood ran cold. Hello again, Valera, he said smoothly. Her hands gripped the basket, tighter. You shouldn't be here, she whispered. I go where I please. I serve the Galactic Council, unlike your dead husband. She stepped back slowly. You lied about him. He didn't do it. He smirked. They believed me, didn't they? He looked toward the shack. So, now you hide behind a human. He gave me work, she said, voice shaking. He helped my son. Krez leaned closer. Don't get too comfortable. You're still marked. And he'll suffer for helping you. Just then, Jonas walked out, wiping grease from his hands. He stopped when he saw Krez. Who's this? Valera didn't speak. Her lips were tight. Krez smiled politely. I'm just an old friend. Jonas raised a brow. Funny. You don't look friendly. Krez turned and walked away without another word. Jonas watched him go. Who was that? Valera's voice was soft. The one who destroyed my family. Later that evening, inside the shack, Jonas sat at his bench, face serious. Valira finally told him everything. Her husband had found evidence of corruption inside the Galactic Guard. He was going to report it. But before he could, Krez arrested him. The trial lasted 5 minutes. Execution came the next day. After that, no one wanted to talk to Valira. No one hired her. She was a traitor's widow. I ran with my son, she said. We lived in cargo holds under bridges. Then I came here. Jonas stayed quiet. Then he said, he was brave. Valira looked up, surprised. Jonas stood. You are too. Her eyes welled with tears, but this time, not from fear. But the danger wasn't over. That night, a warning was sent out from the central outpost. Be advised, a former traitor's widow has been found working under human protection. Surveillance authorized, termination options pending. Krez smiled at the message. The game had begun. The night was colder than usual. Jonas sat by his workbench, watching the old heater flicker weakly. Sparks danced behind its glass shell. The hum of silence filled the small shack, broken only by the soft breathing of the child sleeping in the corner. Valira stood near the door, staring at the stars through the cracked window. She hadn't spoken much since Commander Krez's visit. But Jonas knew something inside her had changed. Her shoulders were tenser, her eyes didn't rest. Is he coming back? She asked softly, without turning. Jonas nodded slowly. I think so. Valira closed her eyes. Her voice trembled. If you want me gone, I understand. Jonas didn't move. You're not leaving. Her lips parted slightly. If he targets you, the colony might blame you too. They already do, Jonas replied, a dry chuckle in his voice. Might as well earn it. Valira turned from the window and sat down across from him. You should know who I really am. I know enough, Jonas said. No, she insisted. Not the full story. Jonas leaned back in his chair. He listened. My name used to be Valira Rental. My husband's name was Kale. He was a data engineer in the military, clever, quiet. He uncovered secret files about resource theft and weapon smuggling. The guard was using civilians for experiments. Kyle saved proof on a chip and told me, if anything happens to me, run. Her hands trembled as she continued. The night before he was going to report it, Krez came to our home. He smiled, said Kyle was under arrest for treason. They dragged him out in front of me. My son was barely 2. Jonas's hands clenched on the table. They gave him no trial, just a staged hearing. Guards clapped when the sentence was read. And then he was gone. She stared at her shaking hands. I took the chip. I ran. But I lost it during the escape. I hid for years. I worked in dark places, earned dirty coins, but no one ever gave me a chance until you. Jonas sat silently for a while. Then he said, You still have your life. And your son. Yes, she said. But I live like a shadow. I'm tired of hiding. Then stop hiding, Jonas replied. Start living, she blinked. But how? By doing what you've already done. Work hard, care for your kids, stand tall, we'll handle the rest. She looked at him with wide eyes. We? Jonas nodded. You're not alone anymore. Outside, someone stood near the shack's corner, listening through a small surveillance device. Krez. He touched a button on his wrist and whispered. She just confirmed everything. Her husband had the chip. I want that shack searched. The next morning, a loud knock hit the shack's metal door. Jonas opened it. 3 colony guards stood outside, 2 aliens and 1 human, all in armor. Inspection, one said. We've received reports of illegal tech in this residence. Valira stood behind Jonas, clutching her child's hand. Jonas folded his arms. No warrant, no entry. This is a colony security matter, the lead guard snapped. I'm a registered citizen of Earth, Jonas replied calmly. If you come in here without proper papers, I'll call the consulate. The guards hesitated. From down the street, other workers peeked out, watching, whispering. The lead alien growled, "This isn't over." "Good," Jonas said. "We'll be ready next time." The guards left. Valera let out a shaky breath. "You risked your life," she said. Jonas shrugged. "You risked yours to tell the truth." That night, Jonas rummaged through one of the old toolboxes Valera had cleaned weeks ago. Something caught his eye. A hidden flap in the lining. Inside it, a small, dusty data chip. He stared at it. Could this be? He handed it to Valera. Her hands shook. This is Kale's chip." She gasped. Jonas leaned in. "Then we just found the truth." But outside, Krez's patience was ending. He paced in his temporary command pod, speaking into his transmitter. "They've found the chip. We must act before it reaches Earth Command." A soldier on the other end asked, "Do we terminate?" Krez's eyes gleamed. "No, not yet. Let them feel safe. Then we strike." Inside the shack, Jonas and Valera sat together. Her child slept, peacefully again, unaware of the danger. Valera looked at Jonas and whispered, "Why do you care so much?" He thought for a second, then said, "Because when no one else helped, someone helped me once. Now it's my turn." Valera smiled. For the first time, not a fake smile, a real one, but outside danger crept closer and time was running out. The next morning felt wrong. The sky above the colony was too still, the air too quiet. Even the machines in the scrapyard behind Jonas's shack didn't hum like usual. Valera sensed it the moment she opened the door. Something was coming. Something bad. Her child tugged her sleeve. "Mama, why are the birds gone?" She didn't answer. She was already scanning the road. Then a shadow moved at the far end of the path. A black military hover car. Her breath caught. Jonas stepped out behind her. He saw it too. "That's not a delivery van," he muttered. Valera took her child inside. Jonas didn't move. He waited. The hover car stopped right outside his workshop. Its doors hissed open. Out stepped Commander Krez, surrounded by 2 armored guards. He wore the same cold smile. "Good morning," he said cheerfully, brushing off imaginary dust from his uniform. Jonas didn't speak. "You've made quite the name for yourself, Mr. Jonas," Krez continued. "Hiring criminals, harboring fugitives." Jonas stayed calm. "Hiring a mother, giving shelter to someone everyone left behind. Yeah, sounds terrible." Krez chuckled. "Still defending her? She works harder than any bot I've seen. She's honest, that's all I need." Krez's smile faded slightly. "May I come in?" "No," Jonas said flatly. Krez leaned forward. "You're protecting a woman who holds data that could destroy careers, ruin reputations, bring down half the guard. That's not smart." Jonas stared him down. "And threatening citizens? That's not smart either." The commander's smile returned. But it was thinner now. Fake. "I'll be back," Krez said quietly. "And next time I won't be knocking." That evening, Jonas checked all the door locks. Then he pulled out an old storage box from under his bed. Inside it, a transmitter. Earth-made, secure line. Valera watched him connect the wires. "What is that?" she asked. "I used to work for a human outpost," Jonas said. "They gave me this when I left. Said if I ever saw something I couldn't ignore, report it." He held up the chip Kale had hidden. "I think this qualifies." Valera's hands trembled. "If you send that, they'll know. Krez will come after you." "He already is," Jonas replied. "Might as well give him a reason." In the shadows beyond the shack, a small drone floated in the air. Watching. Recording. It sent every word to Krez. Inside his dark command pod, the commander's eyes narrowed as he watched Jonas speak. "So the human wants to play hero." He turned to his assistant. "Send in the cleaners. Midnight." Hours passed. Valera tried to rest, but every sound outside made her jump. Her child slept holding her hand. Jonas stayed awake, checking his tools, charging power packs, adjusting defense locks on the door. He was a mechanic, yes, but he knew how to protect what mattered. He'd learned the hard way. At exactly midnight, a silent shockwave rippled through the air. Jonas stood tense. "They're here." Valera's eyes widened. "Who?" Before he could answer, a loud thud hit the front door. Then another. Someone was trying to force it open. Jonas grabbed his welding torch and powered it up. "Get to the back room. Lock her." Valera didn't move. "I'm not leaving you." He turned to her, voice firm. "Your son needs you. Go now." She ran, heart pounding. The door burst open. 2 black-armored soldiers stormed in, weapons raised, but Jonas was ready. Hit a switch, blast, and a pipe exploded above them, spraying pressurized steam into their helmets. They shouted in pain and confusion. Jonas tackled one, grabbing his weapon and slamming him against the wall. The other turned to shoot, but Valera came from behind. Swinging a metal rod into his leg, he fell with a cry. Jonas finished the job with a punch to the helmet. They collapsed. Breathing hard, Jonas locked the door again and turned to Valera. "You came back." She smiled, panting. "So did you, when I needed help." But it wasn't over. Outside, another vehicle approached. Larger, louder. Jonas looked at the transmitter. The signal was still sending. "I just need 10 more seconds," he said. He hit the final command. Message sent. The shack's lights flickered. A rumbling began. Valera held her child tight. Jonas stood between them and the door, holding the weapon he'd taken. Then something unexpected happened. A red light appeared in the sky, a consulate drone. Earth Command. It hovered above the shack and shined a bright beam down on the road, right in front of the incoming attack vehicle. A voice boomed from the drone. "This residence is now under Earth protection. Any attempt to breach will be seen as an act of aggression." The enemy vehicle stopped, then slowly turned away. Krez's plan had failed. Inside the shack, Valera dropped to her knees. "I thought it was over," she whispered. Jonas helped her up. "It's just beginning." The sun rose slowly over the colony, but the air wasn't the same anymore. For the first time in weeks, Valera didn't leave the shack to go to the market. She didn't need to, because the whole colony was already talking about her. They say Earth Command stopped the raid. The human, he fought 2 armed soldiers. And she's still living there? With her child? No punishment? What kind of deal did she make? But this time, not all the voices were angry. Some were curious. Some even sounded impressed. Jonas didn't care what they said. He was busy fixing the damage to the front door. Valera sat nearby with her son, gently sewing the torn fabric of his blanket. She looked at Jonas, then lowered her eyes. Something inside her was changing. She wasn't just afraid anymore. She was thinking, planning, and feeling something she hadn't felt in years. Later that day, a message came from the Earth consulate. A small drone delivered it to Jonas's hand. He opened it and read it aloud. "Valera Rental is now under formal Earth protection. Any harm toward her or her child will be considered an offense. Investigation into the corrupted guard officers has begun. More security drones will be stationed near your residence." Jonas glanced at her. Valera didn't speak. Her eyes were full of tears, not fear, relief. But word of the message spread quickly, across market stalls, through back alleys, into the ears of every worker. For the first time, the colony paused. No one had ever challenged Commander Krez. No one had ever protected someone like her, but one human had, and now she was untouchable. That evening, Valera stood in the middle of the market for the first time alone. No one shoved her. No one spit. No one called her cursed. Some even stepped out of her way. The fruit vendor, who once refused to sell to her, now offered a bag of warm bread. "I, heard what happened," he muttered. "Maybe I was wrong about you." She took the bread, nodded silently, and returned to the shack. Her child jumped in delight. "Mama, food again." She smiled. Yes, baby. Real food. Later that night, Jonas sat by the heater sipping water. He looked tired, bruised, quiet. Valira stood before him, holding something in her hand. It was the old cloth Cale had wrapped the chip in. I want to give this to Earth Command, she said. Jonas blinked. You sure? I've run long enough. If Cale died for the truth, then I want them to hear it. I won't be afraid anymore. Jonas stood and placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. He'd be proud. Valera looked up at him. Then with a trembling voice she asked, Why did you help me? When everyone else turned away? He looked at her and said simply, Because no one helped my sister, and I swore I'd never be the one who walked away again. The next day, something shocking happened. Jonas went to the Colony Hall, the central building, where jobs were posted and residency was registered. He stood in front of the alien overseer and filled out a digital form. Valira watched from the back of the room, confused. The alien looked at the screen, then up at Jonas. You're requesting family co-residency status, he asked. Jonas nodded. Yes. With an alien widow and her child? Yes. You understand what that means? I do. He signed the form. Valera stood frozen. Jonas walked back to her. You don't have to say anything, he said. But I wanted you to know, you're not just a worker here. You're part of this home. You and your son. Her eyes filled with tears. This wasn't just kindness. It was a choice. A human man had made her family official in front of the colony. Everyone stared. Gasps filled the room. No one had ever seen such a thing, but Jonas didn't care. He just looked at Valera and said, Let's go home. That night, Valera tucked her son into a warm bed, a real bed, not a bundle of rags. She stepped outside and looked at the stars again. But this time, the sky didn't feel so heavy. She whispered, Cale, I'm safe. Our son is safe. And it's because someone believed in us. Far away in his dark ship, Commander Krez watched the colony report. He saw the form Jonas signed. He saw the new protection orders. He saw Valera listed as protected family under human citizen law. His fists clenched, but it was too late. He had lost. Rain fell softly over the colony. For the first time in years, Valera wasn't afraid of the sound. She stood in the doorway of Jonas's shack. Not as a stranger, not as a worker, not as a fugitive, but as someone who belonged. Behind her, the small home was full of life. The scent of hot soup, tools buzzing quietly, a child laughing as he played with an old radio Jonas had fixed just for him. This place, once cold and silent, now felt like home. Jonas entered the room, soaked from the storm. He wiped his boots, carrying a small sealed package from the consulate. Valera looked up. What's that? He opened the envelope. Inside was a letter. You are hereby recognized as a family unit under Human Colonist Code 9.5. Valera Rental and her son are now legal dependents of Jonas Keller. Earth Consulate extends full civilian rights and safety privileges to both. Jonas handed the letter to her. She read it 3 times before her hands began to shake. I don't know what to say. Jonas smiled faintly. Then don't say anything. Just stay. Her child ran up and tugged Jonas's hand. Uncle Jonas. The lights blinked again. Jonas knelt beside him. Then we better fix them. You want to help? The boy nodded, grinning. Valera watched them, heart full, eyes wet. She had fled for years. She had hidden. She had begged. Now, she was building a life. That week, things began to change outside. 2. Neighbors who once turned their backs now greeted her. A mechanic across the road offered spare engine parts. The fruit vendor sent over a bag of fresh berries for her son, without charging a single credit. No one said the words, I'm sorry. But their actions spoke louder. One afternoon, Jonas returned from the scrapyard with a surprise. It was a metal frame. Bent, dusty. "What is it?" Valera asked. Jonas wiped it clean, revealing an old sign. Keller and Coer's Repairs. He smiled. "Been saving it. Thought maybe we could make it say something new." He scratched out part of the metal, then used a tool to carve fresh letters beside his name. Keller and Rental Mechanics. Valera's eyes widened. "You want to put my name next to yours?" Jonas looked at her seriously. "You saved this place. You brought it back to life. You earned it." She couldn't find the words, so she just nodded and smiled. The next few weeks passed in peace. Her child went from silent to talkative, from scared to happy. He followed Jonas everywhere, helped him fix wires, learned about bolts and circuits. One night he asked, "Unka Jonas, can I call you Papa?" Valera froze. Jonas paused. Then he looked at the boy and said softly, "Only if you want to." The boy grinned. "I want to." And just like that, something beautiful began. But peace wasn't the only thing growing. One morning, Valera sat outside, sunlight warming her face. She touched her stomach, confused by the sickness she had felt for days. She visited the colony medic quietly. The result stunned her. She was expecting a child, Jonas's child. She didn't know how to tell him, not because she feared his anger, but because she had never believed she could have this. A second chance at love, at family, at hope. That evening, as they sat beside the heater, she gently placed his hand over her belly. He looked into her eyes. His fingers tensed, then softened. "You sure?" he whispered. She nodded. A long silence passed. Then, with a half smile, Jonas said, "Guess I better build a bigger bed." She laughed, then cried. Tears that weren't full of fear or sadness, but joy. Far above the colony, Earth Command released a report. The files recovered from Kale's chip led to the arrest of 4 galactic officers, including Commander Krez. He had been dragged out of his command pod in chains. The galaxy didn't mourn him, but Jonas Keller, the human mechanic who protected a widow, sheltered a child, and stood against injustice. His story quietly spread through the stars. They called it the man who repaired more than machines. In a small corner of the universe, in a shack that once held only silence, a boy laughed, a mother smiled, and a human prepared a new crib by the window, because in a world full of noise and cruelty, one act of kindness had created something unbreakable. A family no one expected, but exactly what the galaxy needed.